In fact, I've heard many people say that, oh, as for adults, we all haven't been adults before, but as for young and being kids, we've all been young and being kids, before. So let me say that I am not there yet, but where you are, been there, before. And it's always a pleasure to look back and then look at your own journey and then see where you could have, done things better and then help people, if you will, to avoid, some of the mistakes that all of us make, along the way. So it's exciting to be here, and I'm very happy to share with all of us here. Typically, event of this nature, you have a lot of plenty slides, PowerPoint, to share, and all that. I want today's session to be interactive. I want it to be a conversation, and so I have avoided, the normal, PowerPoint. I just jotted a few points down that will, of course, guide me as I speak, to all of you this afternoon. So, as Nana has said, yes, at present, I am a senior lecturer at University of Ghana School of Law. And I also, run a law firm called AB Lexman and Associates. We usually do, we say we do corporate practice. That's what we do for the most part. But prior to that, I used to teach, in the United States. And let me say that, teaching is a passion. I always say that there's no way I'm going to stop, teaching. It is my first call. I ended up there by accident, but I'm staying there and I'm not going anywhere. So after I had gotten my PhD, which was in 2008, I believe, I went to teach first at Clemson University in South Carolina in the US. And then from there, I went to teach at Mississippi State University, also in the United States of America. And then at some point in time, as they say, home is home. So you pack and you come back. And so I've been safely here in Ghana since 2012, and I have no regrets. I love what I do, teaching at the University of Ghana and running a law firm, as well. And when Nana told me to come and share with all of you, I did not even, think twice. I never hesitated because it's always good, to share with young people. And corporate governance is something that is really on my heart. I have seen my experience. I've seen many businesses fail because of the fact that they did not adhere, to basic principles of, corporate governance. I also see a lot of businesses struggle just by reason of the fact that they are not adhering to principles of corporate governance. And I've also seen a lot of business that could have been $multi-million worth, but are still mediocre businesses that are just, trying to pull themselves up by their bootstrings just because, they did not adhere to simple principles of corporate governance. Now, when we talk about, corporate governance, I like to tell myself that, look, corporate governance for businesses is actually very important for nation building. As a matter of fact, I have not seen in recent times any country that has made it that a strong, business community and businesses empowered by corporate governance. In fact, when Nana had asked people to share their expectation, I think it was NECA, that did that. And I tell myself that, he put the nail right on the head. Because he said that, look, when you have businesses, usually what you think about is the sales. How do I increase, my sales? How do I make revenue? How do I hire the best people and all that? Hardly would anybody talk about, what are the regulations that affect my business? What are the laws that I need to take into consideration when I am operating, my business? I like to think about it in this way. I'm sure that when I talk about the cars, I see a lot of guys here these days, even the ladies, they also like cars. So I like to look at it this way from this analogy. They say that the ultimate driving machine is a BMW. Okay? And today we have a Mercedes, we have Ferrari, you name it. Now you see these vehicles and they look very, very beautiful and very, very luxurious. Actually, you go inside, very, very luxurious, vehicles. You see the vehicle, you just admire it from afar. But you can agree with me that no matter the sophistication with which that that vehicle would have been put together, if that vehicle has no fuel, it will not run. You can put $1 million to buy a vehicle. However, if you do not have fuel in the vehicle, the vehicle will not run. And if you are running the vehicle and it runs out of fuel, the vehicle will stop. Now, apart from the fact that you need, to have fuel in the vehicle for the vehicle to run, you also need the right quality of fuel, for it to run. And it is in that sense that I look at and I see, corporate governance, that no matter how strong a business you build, that business will come collapsing if you do not have or do not adhere to the principles of corporate governance. And more than likely, you'll struggle even for the business to take off without the principles of corporate governance. So corporate governance is very, very important. And all that you guys are trying to do is either you start a business, you build, up one that you have ready by way of, how do I scale it up and all that. And so this afternoon, what we want to discuss is what is corporate governance? How do I factor corporate governance in my business in a way that the business is ultimately going to succeed and grow? Because although my initial remarks was that nations grow by what businesses do, another advantage of businesses is that it puts a lot of money in the pocket of the stakeholders of the business. And the stakeholders of the business can be those that start the business, as well as those that are employed, by, that business as well. So whether you are, you are an entrepreneur, whether you are a shareholder, whether you're an employee of a business, corporate governance is still very important to you in that regard. Now, as you know, I'm a teacher, so there's no way I will discuss anything without at least giving you, some definitions. Yes, no, you cannot escape, from that. So allow me to read a few definitions as has been captured, in various literature. I'm not going to bore you with a lot of theories, as I said, I want to make it very practical. So one author says that corporate governance is the interaction between various participants. These are shareholders, board of directors, and the company's management in shaping, the company's performance. Another author says that it is an interaction between the company's management, the board of directors, shareholders, and other stakeholders like employees, suppliers, creditors, customers, etc. Another says that corporate governance concerns the relationship among the management, the board of directors, controlling shareholders, minority shareholders, and then, other shareholders. Now, ultimately, corporate governance is actually to ensure the expansion, of the businesses that we set up, to ensure that there is sustainable growth in the company. Now, if you look at all the definition that I gave you, it talks about how to manage the relationship between different stakeholders, within a company. Okay, so when you take a company, there are different stakeholders in a company, and I like to call them the different pillars that exist in a company. So when we talk about a company, usually we have some people that we call them the shareholders. These are the persons that have the unit of ownership. These are the persons that would have set up the business. Then we do have, directors as well. They are the people that run the business on a day-to-day basis. Okay. Now, we also have, secretaries of the company. We have customers of, the company as well. Sometimes we even have financiers that are not necessarily shareholders. In fact, Nana, in introducing Christopreneur, indicated that he has some international collaboration, he has some international funding that comes in. Now, that particular source is a stakeholder, of his company. Think about it. Nobody is Father Christmas. Nobody will give you money unless they also have an interest one way or the other. That interest may be positive, it may be negative, but we cannot take away the fact that they will have an interest in the business. So they are also stakeholders in that regard. Your client, your customers, they are also stakeholders, as well. And when you single out the shareholders, sometimes you may have one shareholder. There are other instances where you have multiple, shareholders. And these multiple shareholders may have interests that do not align with each other. So all of them do have interests as well. And the issue of corporate governance is how do we, if you will, manage the relationship between and amongst all these entities, these stakeholders, what I call the internal stakeholders and then external stakeholders, in a way that will advance the course of the business. So we have one business entity, and yet within that business entity, you have different stakeholders in there. So when we talk about corporate governance, how are we managing all these interests? By the way, one of the external stakeholders will be the government. One of the external stakeholders will be regulators. First, they're also interested in your business. So how do we manage those relationships? And for the most part, the government, anytime that I talk about corporate governance and I talk about the fact that the government is a stakeholder, people will be like, oh, are you sure? What are you talking about? Yes, the government is a stakeholder. Okay. Now, the government has an interest in your business flourishing. It may not necessarily manifest so clearly, especially in our country, but the government is very much interested because, see, companies do have public functions that they perform. You may set up your company and all you are thinking about is how do I make money? How do I make impact in society? But the state, the government also has an interest because think about it. When your business flourishes, what happens? You pay tax. Even when you dodge, you still pay some. The tax that you pay make up the revenue for the government. When your business is flourishing, you also employ people. The people that you employ, that would mean that the lower the unemployment rate, the government would take credit for the low unemployment rate, although it is through your entrepreneurship that your business has grown and has employed people. So certainly the government is interested, or the state is interested in your business. I'm sure that you have also heard in Ghana, we have been talking these days about tourism. How do we market Ghana? How do we put Ghana on the market? I mean, on the world stage, to attract a lot more people. You have no idea how businesses, assist in doing that. Today, when we talk about Apple, when we talk about Microsoft, as soon as that is mentioned, there's a certain country's name that comes to mind. But you notice that Apple and Microsoft are our private businesses. But what they've done is that they have put the United States of America on a map. When we hear Alibaba, we know where it's coming from. When we hear BMW, there's a certain country that you think about. When you hear Toyota, Hyundai, look, today Korea has become super, powerful and very popular by reason of, these private companies that operate, from there. So you may be setting up your business in your small corner, but the state is very much interested because you may, when you succeed, put the nation state on the map. So we are very much interested, in doing that. In addition to that, you will not believe it, but there are a lot of people that work in public service that, in essence, had all the experience and their training, they honed their skills working for the private sector. So I'm sure you hear people, extolling their credentials as to why they should be voted for to go to parliament because he was the managing director of this, and I work for this company and I work for that company and all that. These are private entities, private companies. And yet it becomes the breeding grounds for us to train people that will end up, in public service. So I would say that your business, even though you are setting it up and you are thinking that, oh, this is my private business, look, the state is interested and our society is interested as well because there's so much benefit, that way too. So when we say that corporate governance helps to grow your business, then obviously the government is also interested in making sure that businesses imbibe and incorporate corporate governance into their operations. Now, corporate governance itself has a number of advantages that we talk about. One, corporate governance attracts investments. One of my my pet project is encouraging people to go into business. And I'm sure that all of you would have heard that, oh, when you want to go into business, you need a lot of money. One of the things I tell myself is that, look, setting up businesses and having money is like the chicken and egg situation. Which one comes first? I believe that you can set up, business, little or no money. However, you need money to scale. If you want to scale, you need money. No two ways about it. You can set it up with nothing, but you need money to scale. Now, when you want to raise money, you can raise it in a number of ways. It can be by way of debt that is going to borrow, or it can be by way of equity, getting someone to give you money in exchange for being a shareholder or being an interest bearer within the company. Now, whether it is debt or whether it is equity, that person will have to be attracted one way or the other to give you the money. Look, if I have money right now, and I'm sure if you have money right now, you'll be thinking about, should I put it at a bank? Should I put in some investment somewhere? In fact, you'll be thinking about where can I put it in a way that will give me the most returns? So if I'm going to put it in somebody's business, that I need to be able to trust how that business is being run. Now, once you incorporate corporate governance into your business, it actually increases the element of trust. And with that, attract investment, coming your way. Because corporate governance helps with ensuring, transparency in the way businesses are run. Okay? So it gives some level of predictability to any investor that is coming into your business. I'll give you an example. When I close from work and I'm going home, I used to buy pawpaw by the roadside. And I bought it for one of these ladies that, sold just by the roadside. Okay. And I always say that I'm very loyal in the sense that when I start buying from you, you are the only one I'm going to buy from. Over time, we develop a relationship. So when I even get there and I don't have money, he says, oh, don't worry. Oh, boss, what if I call or channel this Canada? Because you trust that I'll come back the next day because I've been buying, from you. So I started buying pawpaw from this woman. And after a while, I noticed that she was not there. In the evening, I passed and she's not there. The next time I pass again during the day, I see her, roasting plantain. Then another time, I see her, selling, roasted yam, and all that. Okay. Now, the point is that this person, she's also in business, but you notice that she gets up and today she's selling pawpaw. The next day is mango. Another day is roasted plantain. Another day is yam. If you want to go and put your money in that business, will you do that? Because there's no level of predictability. You never know what she's going to be doing tomorrow. In fact, the next day you may pass there and she's not there. Why? Because, I have a funeral, so today I won't come. Or today when I woke up, I didn't feel like going to sell, so I'm not going. There's no level of predictability around that. There are no rules and regulations that govern how that business is run. So no investor will be interested in investing in you. If even family members will think twice before they give you the money. Because I give you the money, and then tomorrow you decide that you won't come. Or when today you have made money, you decide that, you know what, I'll go to the funeral and go and donate all that at the funeral. Yeah. So there's no level, there's no transparency, no rules and regulations with which, the business is being run. So no investor is going to be interested in putting money or backing your business. However, once you have corporate governance, guess what? It gives you that transparency. It gives you that, predictability. And then there's a bit of trust as well. And that is what is going to make the difference whether An investor is going to put their money in your business or is going to put their money in another person, because corporate governance also helps you to be accountable. Okay. Now, when I talk about accountability, it is not only to those external stakeholders that I talked about, not only to your creditors, not only to your shareholders, but also accountability to your workers, to your employees, and most importantly, accountability to yourself, as well. So, as they say, we all don't know ourselves until we come into money. Now, corporate governance holds you down. Make sure that you are doing the right thing. It serves as a check and balance for how you run, your business. So it's very, very important. It also ensures that your business grows sustainably. Sometimes you see some business, they discover a certain business idea, or they get some kind of product and they are doing so well. But you give them 1 year, you can't find them anymore. You give them 2 years, they are missing from the face, of the earth. Corporate governance helps you to pivot, even when the product becomes, the product is no longer, viable. It helps you to pivot, and, move on as well. It also fosters a good relationship with regulators, okay? Now, once you have corporate governance imbibed in the way you do your business, the regulators are much more comfortable. When the tax authorities are coming to your office and they know that you have good corporate governance, once they look at your financial report or they see your financial statement, they are unlikely to go and say, look, go and open your fridge, go and open the cupboard, let me see what is in there. They trust the process that would have gone through. So it, if you will, ensures that the regulators, when they are dealing with you, are also able to have some level of trust, and it improves the relationship. So when the regulator comes and say, you know what, this month we didn't do so much business, so this is the only VAT that I'm paying, they are not suspicious. Or this is the only withholding tax that I'm filing for the month, they are not suspicious with respect to that. So ultimately, we say that, corporate governance helps the business to operate efficiently and effectively, to improve your access, to capital, mitigate against risk, and then safeguard against mismanagement. It's very, very important. When you set up the business, yes, from the beginning, you are the one that you do everything. You are the accountant, you are the receptionist, you are the chief operating officer, you are the managing director. You do everything because it's a small startup. You are starting. But over time, you need to now go ahead and bring other people on board and all that. Corporate governance ensures that there's good management. You can go to sleep and rest assured that the business is being run well. When you do not have proper corporate governance in place, then obviously there's going to be difficulty in the management of a business. So in the nutshell, by way of introduction, this is what we mean by corporate governance, and this is the importance of corporate governance. Now, I want us to shift gears and now talk about the principles of corporate governance. How do I bring corporate governance, into my business? How do I ensure that my business is adopting corporate governance principles? Now, the principles of corporate governance can be found in many, many, many documents. In fact, in Ghana, it can be found in pieces of legislation. When I say piece of legislation, I mean Act of Parliament. It can be found in the Constitution itself, the 1992 Constitution. There are principles of corporate governance that are embedded in there. There are legislative instruments that has principles of corporate governance. There are, frameworks, that are developed by academics, developed by practitioners. All of them do have some principles, or we may find some principles of corporate governance in there as well. But there's one primary document that is our go-to when it comes to the running of companies. And that primary document is actually the Companies Act 2019, I'm sorry about that. So the Companies Act of 2019, and it's Act number 992, and that's the the Companies Act. And the Companies Act essentially governs how all companies in Ghana are run. So I'm saying that yes, there are different, documents. There are different sources of these principles of corporate governance, but the one place that you can go that is you can find the basics for how your company should be run is, the Companies Act of 2019, Act number, 992. Now, you'll notice that, all throughout, of course, once we are talking about corporate governance, then we're talking about a corporation, talking about a company. But I'm sure that those of us on this webinar, not everyone that is in business has a company, as it were. Now, a company is one of the legal structures for doing business. It is by no means the only way. There are other means by which you can do business as well. You can run a sole proprietorship, you can run a partnership, or you can also run a company. And it is not by any means a progression. So it doesn't mean that you start your business by first starting as a sole proprietorship, then you graduate into a partnership, then you graduate further into a company. No. In fact, you can run a partnership as a business and run it successfully in the same way that you can run a company. You can also run a very successful, sole proprietorship. However, it is the rudiment of these structures that will determine whether you will require or whether you'll be able to attract outside investment. Of course, it's not every business that will end up becoming a multi-million, a multi-billion-dollar business that exists in multiple locations. Not necessarily. Yes, some business will end up being successful, but still, just be local champions where they are. A1 bread is all over the street in Accra. It's also a business, right? Yes. There's somebody that sells meat pie. It's also a business, and they are doing well, feeding their kids. Also creating, jobs in that regard. So there can be sole proprietorship. And in law, you say that a sole proprietorship, you don't even have to register it. You get up, you get your oranges, you start selling as a sole proprietorship right there. You get up, you get your some water somewhere, you get some one iron somewhere, you are running a laundry business. It's a sole proprietorship. There's no requirement for registration. The only thing that the law says you should do is that if you are adopting a name that is not your own name, then you must register the name with, the registrar of companies. So that's a sole proprietorship. But let me say that a sole proprietorship, by its definition and by its antecedents and characteristics, do not have the kind of structures that are needed to attract investors coming in. Because in a sole proprietorship, you can change, just like that woman that sells Pawpaw by night and then Kofi Bookman by day. Yes, you can change at any time. That's correct. Then we also have a partnership. Now, by law, a partnership will have to be 2 or more persons doing business for the purposes of making profit. That's what it is. Now, the profit is shared by the partners. Typically, most professional organizations, or let me put it this way, most professional services are run by partnerships. So accounting firms are partnerships for the most part. Lawyers are partnerships. Doctors run as partnerships because of the fact that they are all professionals. And typically, the specific laws that governs these partnerships are such that you cannot share profit with outsiders. So if a law firm is being run as a partnership, if you're a non-lawyer, they cannot share profit with you. What it means is that no matter how successful a law firm is, or no matter the potential of a law firm, if you're not a lawyer and you're not a partner, you cannot go and invest in them because they can't share money with you. That's what it is, okay? So the vehicle that is flexible, that allows anybody to run that business, or let me say the vehicle that is flexible, that allows anyone to run the business, and also allows, professionals, non-professionals to invest and all that, is the company. So when we talk about corporate governance, at least for our purposes, we are actually going to be talking about it in terms of the company. And when we also talk about the company, if you look at the Companies Act, we have different types of companies. as a matter of fact. Okay, a company can be a private company or it can be a public company. And the definition as to whether it's a public company or a private company has got nothing to do with the government. It has everything to do with the number of shareholders in that particular company and whether there are any restrictions on the transfer of the shares of the company. Okay. Now, that company can be an unlimited company or it can be a limited company. Now, when we say that a company is limited by shares, we are saying that, look, when the company gets into any debt and all that, the company is seen as a separate person. So you as the entrepreneur or you as the shareholder, you will not bear any personal responsibility for the losses that the company would have incurred. And the company is unlimited. In that case, it means that you and the company are seen as one and the same. If the company should make losses, yes, those persons that the company owes, they can come for you. They can come for your person and ask you pay. But if it's a limited liability company, then of course the liability we say is limited to the amount that you have already paid, contributed to the company by way of what you paid for your shares, and that's it. And the company can also be one that is limited by guarantee. So Christopreneurship, the company that is being run, is actually a company that is limited by guarantee. Now, when the company is limited by guarantee, in Ghana, we say it's called an NGO. Okay? That company cannot share profits. That's a disadvantage. The company can run, it can make money, but when the company makes profit, it cannot share the profit. If you share the profit, it's against the law. That's what it is. It is, if the company makes profit, you have to put the money back into the running of the business. Now, sharing profit is different from paying yourself a salary. Of course, you can pay yourself a salary. You can pay your workers' salaries, but that is not profit. And I explain to you, as we go along. But where the company is a limited liability company, of course, you can pay yourself a salary. And when the company makes profit, you can share the profit. And you can make profit. There's no limit all the way to the sky and above and beyond. You can share it. As of unlike a company that is limited, by guarantee. So once again, in talking about the corporate governance principles, I want us to focus on the limited liability company. That is, for the most part, what a lot of you, either you are running or you are aspiring, to run as well. And it is also the most popular, vehicle for doing business, around, the world. And if you are an entrepreneur looking for investment and all that, that is the kind of vehicle that you want to run. Now back to the principles of corporate governance. And as I said, the Companies Act gives us the basic principles. I'll start with that. So first and foremost, a company must have a shareholder. So a company must have at least one shareholder. Now the company must also have at least two directors. So you must have one shareholder, and then you must have at least two directors. You must have at least one secretary, and then you must also have one auditor. So you must have at least one shareholder, two directors, a secretary, and then an auditor. You remember that when we're talking about that definition, we say corporate governance is actually the interaction between the different stakeholders or the different institutions, if you can put it that way, within the company, okay? And you see, these institutions have been created in a way that is to guide the company going forward, in a way that is to help the company to grow, okay? So you have a shareholder, you have directors, you have a secretary, and you have auditors. Now, all of them have a role that they play, and it's their interaction that is supposed to lead to a company being able to grow. Now, we'll take them one by one, okay? As to what the law says, they will come, drill down practicals. How do we make sure that we are doing what we ought to be doing, to safeguard our business? So you see, the shareholder is the one that has a unit of ownership. They are the ones that will put in the initial money to run the business. So when you set up a company, you are the shareholder. You may end up being a sole shareholder. And then you go to a research and tell them that, oh, I have some stated capital. My stated capital is 10,000. What you are saying is that at the time that I'm setting up my business, I'm putting in 10,000. Okay. Now the interesting thing is that you notice that when you write 10,000 as your stated capital, the money that you are putting in the business, see, the registrar of company is not asking you that, well, hey, bring a bank statement and show me where the 10,000 is. Okay. Because the assumption is that there is a service that you have provided to set up a company. They're running around, okay, checking out suppliers, checking out what the business is going to do and all that. It's a service that's being provided. So you are saying that you are quantifying the value of your service that you would have provided at the time that the company was set up as 10,000. So that's what it is. Okay, good. So that's your shareholder. It is possible to have multiple, shareholders in a particular company. Then we also have the directors. Now, the directors are responsible for the day-to-day running of the business. You see, we say we have a shareholder. That's not the shareholder's responsibility is not to run the company on a day-to-day basis. The company is run by the directors on a day-to-day basis. Okay? The secretary is like the scribe. The secretary is supposed to ensure that one, the directors, when they are running the business, they are running it in accordance with law. That's the role of the secretary. And the secretary is also ensuring that if there are any guidelines that the company have to follow, the company is so following. So today, we say that the secretary is the custodian of corporate governance in a company, because the role of the secretary is to ensure that the directors who, in essence, have to take the corporate governance and run with it are doing so. So the secretary ensures that. Now, the accountant, or let me say the auditor, is supposed to own the financial reporting of company and ensure that the financial reporting of the company is actually accurate and is a true and fair representation of how the business is being run. Now, for a lot of us here, if we already have a business or running one, more than likely you are a shareholder. You are also one of the directors. You may even happen to be the secretary, as well. Okay. The law does not frown on that. So one person can double as a shareholder, as a director, as well as a secretary of the same company. The only one that you cannot do is that you cannot be the auditor. However, you can do your own bookkeeping. Okay. But today, when we look at corporate governance principles, we say that although the law allows the same person to play all these roles, it is actually not advisable. Because you remember we said that corporate governance is also to ensure some level of accountability. Okay? Look, it's very difficult to be accountable to yourself. Let's face it. In many instances, we are not disciplined enough to do that. And that is not a negative. It is part of the frailties of our humanity. Yes. Sometimes you say, the soul is willing, but the body is weak. Come back from work, in the evening, I have work to do. I open my computer and I know that, Charlie, this report, I need to work on it and get it ready before tomorrow. So you see, the soul is willing. But Charlie, I'll be dozing off like nobody's business because the body is weak. That's what it is. It's part of the frailties of our humanity. So there's nothing we can do about it. So when one person is playing the role of, shareholder, director, secretary, and all that, it's very difficult to be accountable. Okay. And we say that you do not have a system of checks and balances. You do not have, if you will, the separation of powers that is needed, to ensure that there's that level of accountability that is important and necessary for the good of the company. So my advice to you is that in your business, you should not have in yourself shareholder, director, and secretary. These roles should be, as much as possible, separated. It should be played by different persons. as much as possible. Good. Now, that takes me to a question that often people ask. I'm only a startup. I don't have money to have board, to have a board of directors. And by the way, I said that the company must have at least two directors. Now, the two directors collectively is what we call the board of directors. So you can have two directors and they are the board of directors. It's fine. Okay. Although typically, on average, most companies have between 3 and 5 constituting the board of directors. And a lot of the time, people ask themselves that, look, I don't have money to set up a board of directors because you have to go and pay them, the board members. It's true, you may have to pay them. So I don't have money. So people ask themselves, should I have a board of directors in place or should I have an advisory board? So the advisory board, you only go to them as and when you want to. But as for the board of directors, the law has imposed a duty on how they should manage, the affairs of the company. So the question is, do I need an advisory board or do I need board of directors? Let me say that you don't have a choice in the board of directors because I told you that the law says you must have at least two directors. Okay. Now, for practical purpose, you may tell yourself that, you know what, I don't have money to get external. So even though I'm a shareholder, I want to be a director, one of the directors. Then I'll get my brother, my sister to be the other director, or my wife or my husband to be the other director, so that satisfies the law. Yes, you can do that. But then that is the point where you now go ahead and say, okay, let me set up an advisory board. These are persons that are going to keep me accountable for the work that I do. Now, let me say that when you have an advisory board, it doesn't mean that you have overcome the issue of how do I pay for that, because they may ask that you should pay for their time. But I'm here to announce to you that you can set up a board of directors or an advisory board and pay next to nothing. Today, there are a number of people that are also looking for what I call significance. There are people that are well accomplished. There are people that are starting their career that are also hoping to impact others. There are people that have arrived. They are really there. They are well accomplished. They don't need your money. They just want to help. They want to help so that they can say that tomorrow they can say, oh, I was also a part of this person's journey. And those persons are ready to serve without necessarily collecting your money. Or at the very least, at the beginning, when you are starting, they are not interested in your money. They are interested in your idea. They are interested in you growing. So what I'm saying is that you need to identify people that are ready and willing to assist you in running your company. And there are plenty of them. In fact, Nana will tell you that I have agreed on a Saturday. For Saturdays, the only days for myself. Because Monday to Friday, very, very hectic. I wake up, 5 o'clock, I'm up. By 6 o'clock, I've left my house. And I return to my house again around 10 p.m. And when I get home at 10 p.m., I'm going to bed after midnight. So it's not easy. As they say, if you want to be successful, Charlie, it's not chicken change. Yes. And it's only on Saturday that I have to myself. So Saturdays, I tell myself that if there's funeral, there's outdooring, and know that I will not go. My money will go, but the human being will not go. That's when Charlie me to I stay home. Because Sunday, I go to church. And I have dogs. I have 4. So when I come back Sunday, I bath for them. We go for walk. You name it. You do all that. Yes. In the evening, I do my piano recitals and I get ready for Monday. So Saturday, Charlie, I protect it. But I have agreed to come and speak here. And Nana, by the way, is not paying me anything. I've agreed to come and do it for free. That there are plenty of people who will be willing to serve on your board, either in their capacity as part of the board of directors or in their capacity as part of the advisory board. All that they want is that you are candid with them. You tell them as is, and then you are accountable as well. If I serve on your board and you are in the habit of hiding things from me, I will be gone in no time. Because there was a point. You understand? Yeah, what's the point in being there? I want to be there because I want to help. That's what it is. So if you are hiding information from me, if you are not being truthful and candid, I'm out of there. If you are giving advice and you are not taking the advice, I'm out of there as well. And for most people, that's what it is. Now, it is different from when we have difference in opinion. That one, there's nothing wrong with that. As a matter of fact, it is encouraged because it is in our disagreement with respect to our opinion that we're able to make headway. But we can disagree in a respectful manner. So that one, there's nothing wrong with that. Okay. But chances are that you would have identified that person by reason of the fact that you think the person knows more than you. So where the disagreement is all the time, then that board member is not, or that director, whether advisory or part of the board, is not the right person. Because that person will have to know enough more than you, okay? And for you to respect that person's opinion enough to put him or her on your board. If you are clashing and disagreeing all the time, wrong. It is not the right one. So my point is that you must have a board of directors. Oftentimes, you young people, when you start the business, you start doing well. I am not interested in any board to come and create bottlenecks for me and to tell me what I should be doing and all that. Where were they when I set up my business? Look, there's an adage in fancy that when you are drawing the line, you will not know that the back is crooked. It takes the person from the back, okay? Yes, to tell you. So sometimes you may think that you have it all sorted, but no, you may have missed to dot an I or to cross a T. And when you have those board the board of directors or that advisory board, they play that important role in shaping that. Already, the law has told us that, look, every company must have at least 2 board meetings in a year. And at that board meeting, guess what? You must make sure that you record what happened. So you have to have minutes of the board meeting. Now, when the board meeting is being held, you go there and you go and report to those board of directors. So you go and tell them about the operations of the company. And that's where the issue of candidness comes in. You tell them the operations of the company, and then they will now weigh in terms of what they think you ought to be doing, what they think you should continue, what you should desist, what you should be aiming at, and so on and so forth. So it's very important that you are adhering, okay, to the dictates of the law in terms of the holding of these meetings. So every company must have 2 board meetings in a year, okay? Yes. So you need the board members in order for you to hold the board meetings. So you need to be able to run, 2 board meetings. Now, the question also is that, I've told you that there are people that are ready and willing to serve. But the question is, how do I select those persons that are going to sit on my board? Should they be my friends? Should it be my parents? Should it be my pastor? Should it be my lecturer? I mean, you name it. There is actually a way in which you go about constituting your board. And it is based first and foremost on the business that you are doing. So I'll tell you, because I don't know all the businesses that are represented here, give you the broad strokes in terms of what you need to be looking at, when you are selecting a board member. And then I'm sure that you are being as smart as you are, you'll pick, what you need to be doing, or to be looking at, to select those board members. So first and foremost, you select your board members, whether they are the actual board of directors or the advisory board, based on competence, okay? Based on competence. So 1, you are running a fintech business. So you are selecting a board member. You want a board member that at least has some competencies in the business that you are setting up or that you are running. So if it's a fintech, what do they know about fintech? And you all know that when it comes to fintech, these days there are a number of different ones. So how well do they know the business? You are setting up an insurance brokerage company. What do they know about insurance in that regard? You are setting up a bread-making business. What do they know about the hospitality industry? So that's what I call, the competence. So you are selecting them, for competence. I'll come back to competence in a minute. Then you may also look at influence as well. What kind of influence do they wield? Okay. Now, you are targeting, so you are setting up a business to target young people, for instance, okay? The core customers of your business is a certain, category of the population or segment of the population, okay? So you are looking at somebody that likely has an influence over that particular core group of persons that you are hoping, to bring on board. You may also consider as well someone that will serve as a bridge between you and then your other shareholders. So where you have a business that has multiple shareholders, okay? So today you may set up your business and then you go and collect money from some entity, right? That entity becomes a shareholder, okay? The shareholders have a role to play in the business. So you may select a director that will serve as a bridge between you and the shareholder. So it may be that shareholder himself or herself, or maybe that shareholder's representative, or somebody that has, has a good rapport with, that shareholder. So that in terms of the shareholder communication, that becomes easy for you. You may also consider somebody that will serve as a bridge between you and then your clientele as well. So that these persons, when they sit on your board, they help, if you will, to shape that community of, the company. Now, you may also consider a person that is well-versed in financial reporting. So well-versed in financial reporting. Sometimes you're lucky to get somebody who is very well-versed in financial reporting and also is good in tax as well. I'm sure they've all heard about, what is happening in our country and how the Ghana Revenue Authority, is now on overdrive. They are trying to collect money from everyone. If the money is under a stone, they will lift the stone, pick it up. So today, if you are considering members of your board, you are looking at their competence with respect to taxation. Then, to the extent that every business, in essence, will have to deal with the law, you will have to consider somebody that has some legal expertise. I always hear people saying that the lawyers are too expensive, we can't afford them. Yes, it's true. But I've already mentioned that there are also plenty of lawyers who are prepared to serve for free. Okay? Because you see, I told you, it's all about the idea. There's a company that I helped set up. Now, this company deals in accounting software. Okay, so this is accounting software for financial application. Okay? Now, it was a startup. And the company started, we had a 5-member board, and the board members were not paid. So these were board members that were serving for free. They were not paid. But they believed in the vision of this entrepreneur that set up the company. So 5 professionals, and I'm talking about, one of them was a seasoned lawyer, more than 20 years at the bar. One of the board members was a financial guru, has been worked in banking for more than 30 years. One of them, private equity. Another one, was a corporate lawyer based in the US, and all of them were serving for free. In fact, my firm happened to serve as a secretary, to this particular company, and we were also doing it for free. The guy was my very, very good friend. I believed in what he was doing. So we were all serving. Now, within 1 year, he started making money. By year 2, he started paying board members certain allowance. Every board member was being paid 15,000. Okay. Now, by year 3, that has doubled to 30K because now the company is doing well. And the company's bottom line, in fact, last year, company made 8 million, as revenue. Okay. And in terms of profitability, out of that 8 million, 2.6 million was actually profit. So 2.6 million as profit, when that man is spending 200,000 to pay for board members and all that and compliance issues, it's no money because you have 2.6 million. So you have taken 2 million out, 200,000 out of that, you still have 2.4. By the way, it is the board or is the structures that have put in place that actually catapulted you into making that 8 million. when we had, our budget hearing for 2024, yes, now our company is projecting to make 6 million in profit. And I'm talking about a company that is not even 5 years old. So from 0 to 100, that's what it is. Okay. But these seasoned guys started serving for free. That's what it is. So do not, and I repeat, do not run a company without having a board of directors. You are bound to fail. As they say, if you fail to plan, then you are planning to fail. So make sure that you do have a board of directors in place. Look for the right persons with the right credentials to serve on your board, and be upfront with them. Go to them and say, look, Mr. So and so, these are, my ideas. I want to set up this company. I'm running this company and I need help. This is where I am. This is my finance. This is my auditor account for the last year or 2 years or 3 years. I'm not there yet. I cannot pay you. Can you commit at least 2 hours, every 2 weeks? Can you commit 4 hours a month, to serve on my board? And I promise that once things, gets better, we are happy to, regularize and, talk about how we compensate for your time. But today, we don't have that. Okay. Now, you identify this person. There are many ways by which you identify them, because sometimes even when you have seen somebody that you want, the question is, how do I approach them? Where do I find them? There are many, many ways in doing that. First and foremost, you have identified some bank manager that you want, or some CEO of some company. You ask yourself, where do they go to? Wherever they go to, that's where you have to be. I always say that you have to do what you have to do to get what you want. It's as simple as that. The world is not fair. Okay? Yes, life does not give you what you deserve. Life gives you what you take. So you must be prepared to take from life what is also yours. There are times where you have to go to your old school alumni. Okay? I tell you what I used to do for my business development. I just sit down and say, I went to Infantipim School for my, secondary school. I went to University of Ghana. Okay, at least these are 2 institutions I attended in Ghana. So I take the Ghana Club 100. These are the 100 top companies in Ghana. Then I start to go to their website one by one. Then I start to look for people that went to, professionals that went to either Infantipim School or went to University of Ghana. As soon as I find any of these 2 connections, next, I go to LinkedIn to go and look for you. Once I find you there, I send you a message. I say, oh, hi. I noticed that you went to Infantipim School. I also went to Infantipim School. By the way, this is my name and all that. It's a pleasure, getting to know you. That's my one leg in. If you went to University of Ghana, the same. Oh, I was at Lagos Hall. I was at Q26. What about you? We establish a connection. The next thing you know, I'm asking you for work. That's how it is. Okay? So the same way, you can get to these persons and you can ask them to serve. Now, sometimes, depending on your business, you don't have to go for a bank manager who doesn't have time. You can go for a middle level manager who has time, who has the pedigree and, the credentials to be able to help. If you need a lawyer for basic corporate, governance, if you need a lawyer, you don't need a lawyer that is 30 years at the bar. You can get a lawyer that is 2 years, 3 years at the bar, 4 years at the bar. That lawyer is already hungry, okay, and is looking for opportunities to serve. That person will quickly say, yes, I want to sit on your board. Because guess what? That person also put it on his or her LinkedIn profile or resume that I am on the board of so and so company. It's as simple as that. Once you grow, he also automatically grows as well. So they'll be willing, ready and willing, to serve on your board. The next question is, what is the ideal number? I told that the law says 2. Should it be 2? I think that an ideal board should be between 3 and 5. Okay, an ideal board between 3 and 5. The reason being that you need to also generate some healthy conversation, some healthy discussion, some healthy disagreement amongst the board members to help you move ahead. Where there are only 2 members, there's always a problem, what I call groupthink, that may set in. because one person is so respected, anything that he says, be a yeah. Nobody is prepared and ready to interpret what that person says. Because no matter how well the person is credentialed, the person is not the repository of all wisdom. And if you are not careful, that person will lead you into the ditch. So once you have between 3 and 5, you will have the same checks and balances that you need, in running the company. And these board members will now, in their discussion, will be able to help shape your business. In fact, there are some companies that I serve on a lot of the boards of a lot of companies. In fact, most of them are not paid. Some of them, yes, very well paid, but majority of them are not paid. And yet, the same level of dedication is what you use for all them. Because in the first place, being a board member comes with a lot of responsibilities that are spelled out in law. And secondly, you also want to be part of something good, something successful. So if the company progress, it's good for me as well. So look, you serve and you serve with your whole heart, even though you are not making any money, because you want to be a part of that, that success. So I think between 3 and 5, should be more than good enough. Okay, so that is that with your board of directors. The secretary, when you have board meetings, how would we be able to determine that you have had meetings? The secretary will have to take minutes of that meeting. So make sure that you get somebody that will serve as a secretary. Now, you may not, at this point in time, be able to afford a lawyer to serve as a secretary, okay? But you can get someone, non-lawyer, you can get, once again, a young lawyer or a non-lawyer that is ready to serve as a secretary. You can then get, if you have a lawyer who is serving on your board, you can say, oh, can you please train this person or tell my secretary, the rudiment of being a secretary of a company. You notice that you're getting free legal advice, free legal services from your board member, not paid for. The secretary will now go ahead and take the minutes of every meeting that you hold. And I told you that the law says you have at least 2 meetings. But for proper corporate governance, you need to have at least 4 meetings in a year. So the meetings are held on quarterly basis. So from January to March, Q1 is done. So Q1, what happened in terms of your operations, right? You report to your board in terms of, these are my operations for the last quarter. You go to Q2, you now go back and say, these are my operations for Q2. This is how it compares to Q1. This is how my half year is looking at. You go to third quarter, this is my operations for third quarter. This is how it compares to second quarter. This is how it compares to first quarter. This is how my year is shaping up. Then eventually you are now able to compare Q1 of 2024 to Q1 of 2023, Q2 of 2024 to Q2 of 2023. Then you start to establish a certain pattern, going forward. Okay, that helps so that when they are, as I call them, when they are rapids, okay, when you have the rough road, you get there, you are quickly able to identify, because you learn, no, I'm not doing so well as I used to do, or I'm doing very well, as well. So it's very important that you're able to, compare and then be able to tell how well or how not well you are doing. In addition to that, the minutes that are taken by the secretary, guess what? When you go and you go looking for, go pitching for that investor, when that investor comes, what do you think they're going to be looking at? They want to see whether this company is run and being run well. We want to make sure that the company, although it's a limited liability company, is not run like that woman that sells pawpaw by night, and then Kofi Bookman by day. No. And it's the minutes that will demonstrate that. Because see, your minutes, at the time that you are taking the minutes, you have not contacted that investor. So investor comes today and they're able to look at your minutes for 2022. They know you cannot doctor it, because there's no way you would have been able to doctor, or you would have been able to know what was going to happen in 2024 for you to doctor what would have happened, was happening in 2022. So it becomes a record of how your company is run. That investor says, okay, NECA runs, NECA Company Limited has 5 directors. He's been holding these meetings on a quarterly basis. And every time that they have a meeting, they do have a notice of meeting. They do have an agenda, okay? And this is what the board, this is what is discussed at the board meeting. This is what the board says companies should do. You look at the subsequent, minutes, it follows in terms of what they ought to be doing, all that is being done. Now, company may be making losses, it's fine. All that it means is that you have a record of what has happened. And that investor is more likely to be comfortable with your business because the investor sees the record. This company was doing very well, then it made a lot of losses, it's doing very well, or the company is still making losses. So the investor knows that this is the true picture of the company. When I'm bringing my money in, I know how the company is going to grow or what I need to do or ought to be doing for the company to grow. The investor knows that this is a company that's being run well. When NECA decides that he's going to leave, it doesn't mean that the business is at a standstill. They lock the door, keys in his pocket, he's gone. No, there are structures for doing, the business. When you go to the bank is also very comfortable knowing how the business is run. The bank knows that we have a board of directors. These are the credentials of the board of directors. These are respectable people. So they are more likely to do business, with you. So you need to have a secretary, and you have to make sure that that secretary is taking, proper records. And I need to plug in my computer.
Okay, sir.
That secretary is taking, proper records, and the records are being archived and kept well. And if you do have the right people on your board, they will make sure that the secretary is doing the right job. So you need to have secretary in place. Then you also have to have an auditor. I told you I need an auditor in place. Once again, at the time that you are setting up, the register of companies requires that you name an auditor. In fact, at this point in time, you don't need any audit needs, but the law says you must have an auditor. Okay. So usually today, in practical terms, there are auditors that are ready to accept 200 Ghana or 500 Ghana, and then you put their name there as your auditor. They have not provided any service. Okay, right? I told you that the auditor is the custodian of financial records of the company. At the end of the year, the auditor will have to certify that your financial statement is a true and proper reflection of how the company has been run in the course of that particular year. But as a young entrepreneur, I tell you, you cannot afford to retain an auditor on a full-time basis. So what do? All you need a bookkeeper. That's all. Get yourself a bookkeeper, somebody that will record all transactions. If you are buying water, if you are buying pen, pencil, paper, crayon, you name it, that is what the bookkeeper does. The bookkeeper will record all those transactions, keep all the receipts. Then you can now get it for yourself, a consultant accountant. When I started my law practice, I had a consultant accountant that comes once a month. And that once a month, he comes only 1 day. Yes, because the transactions are not plenty. We have already recorded the transactions. When he started, the first day, he was there for about 3-4 days because we have recorded in a way that was making it difficult for him to now translate it into proper financial reporting. So he comes and he tells you, please, this is how I want you to record it. After that, that's we record it that way. He comes in once a month, 1 day, done. He goes. When he comes in, he's going in 500. So you see, you have an accountant, you are actually getting accounting services for 500 Ghana. These days, some people even take 300 Ghana because he's also a consultant accountant, has, a number of companies that he consults for. So at the end of the day, you would have paid 500 Ghana cedis or 800 Ghana cedis, depending on the number of transactions that you do, or 1,000 cedis for counting services. And by the way, the bookkeeping, once you're a startup, you can do your own bookkeeping. There's nothing wrong with that. So you do your bookkeeping, consultant comes at the end of the month, or sometimes when you're not generating a lot of transactions. So for startups, sometimes you're not generating a lot of transactions. So you can even agree that come every quarter. So the person comes every 3 months to come and look at your transactions for the last 3 months. You have to be disciplined to keep all the transactions. So last 3 months, these are my transactions. They recorded nicely, put it down for you. Then at the end of the year, that consultant accountant would have now put your transactions in a way that is in accord with the International Financial Reporting Standards, IFRS standard. So it would have been put in a way that is internationally recognized in terms of how you report your financial records. Then you go look for a consultant auditor that will now interrogate the numbers vis-a-vis the receipt and everything, and will sign it for you. Once he signs it for you, you go and submit that to the Ghana Revenue Authority as your financial statement for the year. You submit it as part of your annual returns to the Register of Companies. Then voila, you are satisfied all righteousness. Now, once again, if you are looking for investors coming in, they are looking at that. Is this person filing their annual returns? Okay. When there are important decisions within the company, have they documented it? And has it been filed? You get a point. So when they come and take a look at your historical records, they know that you are not lying. They know how the company is being run. Now, for a long time, the one thing that I tell you that you must look and look carefully. If you are not careful, it will send you back to Stone Age. What I mean Stone Age is that it will send you back to even the worse off. You'll be worse off than when you started the business. You start a business, you say you are broke. You start a business, but at least you are not in debt and you start a business. If you don't take care of this one thing I'm going to tell you about, it will send you to, you'll be in so much debt that it will be like you are in the Stone Age. And that is your taxes. Don't joke with it. For a long time, a lot of businesses in Ghana were not paying taxes. Okay? First and foremost, it is not sustainable for you to run a business that way. Not paying tax is a risk that the business bears. Okay? Now, a lot of people don't pay tax because they are very naive about the tax system. They think that as soon as you pay, start paying, I mean, I'm not making money, why should I be paying? No. In fact, the tax law itself allows you a lot of deductions. So when you start your business, you may not even be paying, you may be filing your taxes all right, but you are not paying the tax because you are not making profit. It's when you make profit that you pay the tax. So there are a lot of allowable deductions, okay, that the law will allow you to deduct from your income. So we don't pay tax on income, okay? We pay tax on profit. In fact, I take that back. You don't pay tax on revenue. That's what I should be saying. You don't pay tax on your revenue, but you pay tax on profit, okay? So the tax is not paid on revenue, but it's paid on profit. So when you make sales and you receive that sales revenue, that's not what is taxed. Clear? Yes. So for the company, you pay corporate income tax, and that corporate income tax is based on when you have made profit. How would you know you've made profit? You know you made profit when you are keeping proper records. Okay. Now, beyond the payment of tax on your profit, the law has made all of us that run businesses as agents for GRA, for the Ghana Revenue Authority. So when someone provides a service to your company and you are paying them, the law says that your agent will hold 7.5% if it is a service that they are providing. If you are paying them a commission, withhold 10%. So that consultant accountant that I told you about, he counts once every quarter. When he counts, you pay the person 1,000 Ghana cedis for the 2 days that he spends in your company to record your financial, your transactions in a way that is in accord with the International Financial Reporting System standards. That 1,000 that you are paying them, GRA says that you are their agent, withhold 7.5% of that. That's 75 cedis is withheld. So that although you say I'm paying you 1,000, 75 cedis out of the 1,000 is withholding tax. So I withhold that. I go and pay to GRA and I pay you 925 cedis. That's what it is. If I pay you, if you pay that person the entire 1,000, at the end of the year, GRA will tell you that the law says you should have withheld 7.5%. You did not. Because you didn't withheld the 7.5% from your consultant accountant, I am not going to look for that accountant to, I'm collecting it from you, the businessman. Not only am I collecting it, if you pay that money to the government of Ghana at the time that you should have paid, which is the 15th of the next month, the government would have made money off of that. So because of that, please, we are charging you interest from when you should have paid all the way to the present. So if GRA comes to you and the withholding tax is in arrears for 2 years, they charge you 2 years interest. In addition to that, they tell you that, We want this to serve as a deterrent. So we are also charging you penalty as well. You see how you can be going back to the Stone Age. So in a particular year, you may have made a lot of money by reason of the fact that you did not adhere to the tax law. And you notice that here, that withholding tax is not your money. You have already agreed with the accountant, I'll pay you 1,000. But you're only deducting 75 cedis out of the 1,000 to go and give to the taxman. It's part of corporate governance. If you don't do that, the day GRA comes to your doorstep, you are in big trouble. Now, some of us, by virtue of the Value Added Tax Act, some of us will have to register to charge VAT. We have a taxable supply. And here, depending on the business that you do, sure that, if you find the right caliber of person to serve on your board, you'll be able to advise in terms of what you ought to be doing. So is it a taxable supply? Is your bottom line more than 200,000 Ghana cedis in a year? Then you have to consider registering for that and charge VAT on the services that you provide. Once you charge VAT on the service that you provide, you deduct the VAT, you go and pay it to the government Ghana as well. So the taxation is one thing that you cannot take for granted. And I encourage all of you that if you do not have a tax file, that is to say that if you have not registered with the Ghana Revenue Authority, please do that. The good thing is that when you have been in the wilderness for a long time, you have not done it. You just swear an affidavit and say, oh, I've been doing business, this is my transaction, you go and pay. So you do a self-assessment and you pay. In many instances, because you are coming first, it won't be hard on you and go and say, look, go and bring all your bank statement, let's look at it and all that. They are happy to have you. And today, GRA itself says that they are moving towards a customer-centric, service as opposed to the one that they come with their guns, blazing. So make sure that you regularize, your operations in that way, because sooner or later they're going to come knocking on your door, and when they come, they have not paid. That one they will do their own assessment, no longer self-assessment. For now, it's self-assessment. You do it yourself. But when they come, they're going to look at your operations and they will tell you what they think should be your tax liability, and they'll slap it on you and they give you only 30 days to pay. So make sure that you are regularizing your taxes. Now, one final thing, then I'll keep quiet and listen to the comment and questions. I'll go back to the shareholders. In my presentation, I made the assumption that there's only one shareholder. But today, a lot of friends are going into business together. A lot of family members are going into business together and they are shareholders. And sometimes we also attract equity participation, or what I call equity investment. So somebody gives you money and then they also become a shareholder in the company. One of the things that we are noticing these days, which is also serving as one of the ways by which companies die, is shareholder disagreement. Today, we have a lot of shareholder disagreement. And it's because of miscommunication. Now, first and foremost, I told you that the shareholders also have a role to play. A company must have an annual general meeting once every year. That annual general meeting, what is called the AGM, should not be more than 15 months apart. Now, the AGM, or the annual general meeting, is a meeting where the shareholders meet. When the shareholders meet, guess what? They need the directors to come and account and tell them how the company has been run in the previous year. They need the auditors to bring the audited accounts and come and tell them that this is what the directors are saying is true. This is the audited account, to show for that, as well. If there are dividends and all that, they are discussed at the shareholders meeting. Today, you are a startup, so let's not talk about dividends, for now. But let me say that once you have more than one shareholder, you need to have what we call a shareholders agreement. You see, this is what is very interesting. We all have our exceptions and we all have our idiosyncrasies and how we think. When I was in primary school, I don't know if it's still done, but at least I went to a public school. When I was in primary school, and our teacher was teaching us the importance of communication. He lined us all up in one logo line. Then he whispered something into the ears of the first person and told that person that whisper the same thing to the ears of the next person, all the way to the last. Do you know that by the time that gets to the last person, that whatever that the teacher has said had completely changed because everybody and the way they hear it, everybody and their own perception. The only way our perceptions will be aligned is if we put it on paper. Our expectations are aligned is if we put them on paper. So if you are assuming that, oh, I'm working with Robert, Robert and I are shareholders, Neka and I and Robert, we are the shareholders, and we have our own perception as to how I think Robert should act, as to how Neka should act. They're also thinking the same about me. We may disappoint each other. We may disagree with each other in terms of how the business is run. And it's not because we are untruthful or it's not because we are not being sincere. We all have different ways of doing things. So it's important that you put together a shareholders agreement. There's a company that I'm advising right now. It's relatively a startup. 2 shareholders. They've been working together for the last 5 years or so. Business is now beginning to do well. Now, when the company was set up, it was set up to do 3 things. But within the first 2 years, they realized that they are good at 2 out of the 3. So the third thing, they were not doing it. Now, of these 2 shareholders, one of them sat down and realized that, there's a way in which I can monetize this third thing that the company is not doing. So this person has now gone to set up a separate company to now provide a service for that third thing that they were not doing. In his mind, well, Neka and I have set up the business. We said we're going to do 3 things. There's only 2 that we've been doing for the last 2 years. Neka says, oh, this other third one, let's not do it because it's not good enough. And then I go and meet somebody else who can do that third thing. So I now partner or team up with that person to do that third thing. And I think it shouldn't be a problem for Neka because Neka has said at our meeting that we shouldn't be doing that. Of course, Neka shouldn't be happy about that because yes, we are not, this is a service that we say we're going to provide. We are not able to do it, but I'm not going to be happy, or Neka is not going to be happy if I now go and I'm doing that with somebody else. You understand? Yes. Why don't you bring that idea into the company? Why don't we work it, in there? Okay, they are different. What if Neka decides, you know what? I don't think that this business is for me any longer. So I want to exit. By in exiting, I want to sell it to Robert. I may not be happy with Robert. I want Neka to sell his interest in the business to Nana and not to Robert. You understand? That brings disagreement. Okay. Now I appoint, I have appointed myself as the managing director, or I've appointed 2 directors. Neka also want to appoint some. How do we handle all these disagreements? It's important that you put together a shareholders agreement, in which case you would have anticipated all these issues. I told you that it's when people have money that you see their true colors. Okay. And once again, that is also not to cast aspersions on anyone, but that's how we all are as human beings. It's part of our frailties. Once we make money, all the things, because see, we all have dreams that are lying dormant in our head. It's because you don't have money. That's why. It's when people have money that they chew pizza and drink Coca-Cola. When they don't have money, it's only gobe that they eat. That's what it is. So you need to have a shareholders agreement that will spell out quite clearly how the company is going to be run from the shareholder point of view. And once again, if you choose your board members carefully, your directors carefully, they will assist you in putting together a shareholders agreement that will stand the test of time and help your business to grow. So in a nutshell, I think that if you apply these principles in your business, it will lead to accountability. That's number 1. The most important thing is accountability. And the next is it will build in your business systems that will run so that the business can even run without you. Today, my business, when I'm traveling, when I'm going on holidays, I tell my staff, Charlie, I'm going to the US for 1 month. Don't call me because I'm on vacation. And I go and nobody will call you. 1 month, you come back, everything is because you have in place systems that run. Your corporate governance systems are good, superb. So you can go and come back and you don't have any problem. And the corporate governance system can actually be imbibed as part of the culture of the business, so that anybody that comes knows that this is how we do things here. This is how we run. This is how we take our compliance, serious here. So you can leave and go and come back, and the business is there. There's no joy in running a business that for which you are imprisoned. You make money, you can't even go and spend the money. You are there. You can't go anywhere. That's not running a business. That's being a prisoner of the business that you have set up. Thank you very much.
Wow. Oh, thank you so much, Doc. There's a lot. I couldn't even capture everything. Yeah, it's been massive. This is corporate governance 101, 2, 2, 2, 3, 4, 4, everything combined. We are so grateful. Please keep your questions coming in. I haven't received any yet. I don't know what you were waiting for, but kindly send in your questions. I will try and just summarize what I learned. I don't know what you learned. There's a lot, I can tell you that. And thank you so much, Doc. This one, like you said, we are not paying you for it. We can't even pay you for it. Please, everybody should send in your 500 Ghana cedis, 500 Ghana cedis, so that we use it.
Price on the house, so don't worry.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Anna, let me say that yes, it's true. This is very frank. What I have tried to share within the last 1.5 hours is something that can be shared in essentially a whole month. But for something like this, you try to give highlights and all that. As I told you, for me, the takeaway is that if you have a proper board, they will guide you, in all this. All right, thank you.
Yes. So, like Doc said, it's going to take a lot, but just addressing the surface, not to go deep into it. The purpose of the program is to bring training to you, and this webinar is just to kickstart something. And as we progress in the coming months, those who would be enrolled into the program would have opportunities to have some of these structures built in your business. He talked about GRA, talked about compliance. I'm sure some of us know about it, and others may not know. If you are a new business owner and you've been operating as a sole proprietor, now you know that there are different levels of business or different types of business, partnership, company. Myself, I learned a lot today. And going forward, these are the things that you are going to need. This understanding that you need to use to run your business, to position it well for investment, for your own personal accountability. He talked about accountability to yourself, to your workers, to your stakeholders, and a whole lot more. So yes, if you have any question and you would want to speak, I would encourage you to raise your hand. That would do. If you can't also talk, you can type in your question. It will be forwarded to me. Yes, okay, I can see some hands. Let me find out who that is. Just a second. Okay, Barnabas, okay. Please kindly unmute yourself and ask your question. Yeah, we can't hear you.
Sir, please, have you permitted me to speak?
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay, all right. Thank you for the summary to what Doc just shared. In fact, if this is extremely insightful. I was surprised at the time, and there was some few minutes before I was like, wow, so we've spent more than 1 hour already. And truly, what he said, I believe so well that is enough for us to chew in a month. And I appreciate lawyers. I mean, how articulate he was. Everything was on point. We have been in my mind, GRA, we should fear GRA, and they are not that friendly as people do say. But today, the way Doc has used them to cite examples, and he has painted a different picture about GRA to me. I mean, a very friendly GRA now. Please, your presentation has answered a lot of questions that I jotted down. The one that I need you to reiterate is the explanation of the stated capital in the document to RGD. That's only what I want you to reiterate, please. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you very much for your kind words. So in terms of stated capital, as I made reference to stated capital, is a very straightforward concept. When you set up a business, and I'm talking about a company that is either a limited liability company or an unlimited. So let's just focus on limited liability. That's what a lot of you set up. So the stated capital is actually the amount of money by which you set up the business. Okay. So if you are setting up the business and so I'm setting up the business with 10,000, cedis, that becomes your stated capital. There are a number of rules that you go about how to determine the right stated capital. Okay. Today in Ghana, you can actually set up a business with just 500 Ghana cedis. Okay. Now, your stated capital at the time that the business is set up determines the value of your company. So when you have set up a company today, and you say that my stated capital is 500, and by the way, the stated capital is given in exchange shares. So you now tell yourself that, okay, I'm setting up my business and there are 500 shares that I'm setting up the business with. One share is equal to 1 cedi, and you can pick this thing arbitrarily. So 1 share is 1 cedi. So which means that if I allocate to myself 500 shares, it means I have to pay 500 cedis to run the business. That's the stated capital. And I explained to you that that money need not be paid in physical cash, because you can say that the service that I provided to the company to set it up is worth 500. So I allocated to myself 500 shares, and in exchange, the stated capital is 500 cedis. But I'm saying that what that means is that at the time of incorporation, the value of your business is 500 cedis. Now, I say it's a quarter of amount into my vicinity. Is that not the case? So when you have come to me and you are telling me that as you can invest in your business, as you can put $10,000 in your business, your business is worth 500 cedis. Seriously, I'm not interested. Yes, because you are worth 500 cedis. Why would I want to put $10,000 into that business? No. So it's important that for other reasons that this forum will not allow me to share. There are even tax implications with respect to what your stated capital will be, and all that. But your stated capital should be, reasonable, enough. And for a startup, anywhere from 10,000 all the way to 100,000 shouldn't be bad at all. And also depends on the industry that you're operating in. Some industries do have their own regulators that look at that specific industry. If you are doing one of these PSPs, one of these payment services, systems providers, yes, Bank of Ghana will tell you what your stated capital or minimum capital should be, as well. The banks, you need 400 million. PSP, some of them need 200,000, some of them need 2 million, so sometimes if you have a regulator, but for, most part where there are no regulators, I would say that you don't set up a business where your stated capital is less than 10,000. You do not come across as being a serious business. So that's stated, capital. So you indicate what the stated capital is at the time of incorporation.
Can it be updated any time after? Can it be updated? Even
Absolutely,
when you have commenced
absolutely.
operation?
You can always increase it. So you increase it in 2 ways. Okay. When you make profits, you can transfer part of profit into stated capital. The law allows that. Okay. Then also, you can issue additional shares and sell. You get the point? So I said at the time of incorporation, let's say you have 10,000 shares, 1 share is 1 cedi. So you're giving yourself 10,000 shares. Okay. And you're saying that you have put 10,000 into the business. You can, issue additional 10,000 and sell the 10,000 shares to Robert, and that money is paid, to augment, the capital of of the company. So yes, your stated capital can always change. You can always recapitalize. You can increase the stated capital. And that's very easy to do. It's when you are reducing that it's very complicated. But increase, yes, you can always increase it.
Awesome. Okay, I trust your question has been answered.
If you will permit me, I've seen some questions.
Yes, there are questions in the chat. So maybe you can read it from that side directly.
Okay, good. So I am seeing why is non-executive board important as far as the composition of the board of directors is. Okay, so I'm not too sure what you're trying to say, but I'll give you an answer. Yes, there's a difference between executive and non-executive board. Okay. Now, an executive board member is one that, in addition to being a member of the board of directors, also holds a position within the company. Okay. So most of you entrepreneurs are executive directors because you serve on the board. You also are the managing director. You have a specific role that you play. Okay. We say that you have a desk in the business. Let's assume, just for the purpose of our argument, that you appoint me as your director. I will be a non-executive director. I don't hold any position, right? I don't hold any position with respect to the day-to-day running of affairs of the company. So that is a non-executive, director. Now, you want in your board of directors, okay, as a startup, you want as we want them to be executives. Okay. And the reason being that, you see, these are people that are far removed. These are people that are staying and they have a bird's eye view of your business and they're able to advise you. If you end up having, out of the 5 directors, if you assume that you decide to have 5 directors, out of the 5 directors, your colleagues, you and your colleagues that are running the business on a day-to-day basis, you guys are the 4, and bring one person as an outsider. It's a very ineffective board as a startup. Because you have your colleagues all the time. You guys can talk. So why do you put all of them on the board? You understand? The non-executive should be more than the executive directors, because I told you that you need to have a board meeting on a quarterly basis, and at the quarterly meeting, you are bringing the operations of the business to be discussed and dissected by your board. So where they are all executive, you work with them on a day-to-day basis. What's the point? There's no need. So your board as a startup should be majority, non-executive directors. It's okay for 1 or 2 to be in there. Usually when you are 2 shareholders, the other one to say, me too, I want to be on the board. It's fine. Yes, you can bring in 3 or 4 additional non-executives to serve, so that they will serve as the direction or give you the direction for how the company should go. All right. Why is it so crucial to get a secretary with a legal background to the executive board? Because you kept stressing. Okay, good. So 2 things. Maybe because of my biases as a lawyer, but I think that first and foremost, your board, you must find a lawyer. It's very important. That lawyer, because first and foremost, a business will by all means have legal issues. Okay? If you have a lawyer, that lawyer provides you free services, because the person is on your board. The person has agreed already to serve, on your board. And you may have told him or her how there's a startup, we don't have money, and all that kind of stuff. So the person is ready and willing, because they see their investment in your business as long-term. So they are unlikely to charge any money, and they provide a lot of services and guide you as well. Okay? Now, first and foremost, if you get a lawyer serving on your board, they are not only thinking about how well your board is doing, they understand the implications. Let me tell you, these days, a lot of us, I'm very careful to agree to serve on anybody's board. You know why? Because now the law is very clear. If I am serving on your board and you go and misbehave, and the company gets into debt, and the company is unable to pay its taxes, guess what? The directors are directly responsible for that. So I'm on your board, and you go and I give you advice you don't take. You go and do whatever you want, and at the end of the day, GRE comes and slaps you with a tax liability. They will come to my house and come and collect the money from me. You understand? When you have lawyers there, they know the implications. So they are likely to guide you in terms of what you ought to do, because they know that their own professional license may be on the line as well. So maybe bias, but I think that as much as possible, try and get somebody with legal background, to serve, on your board. Now, the secretary, you see, the secretary, until the Companies Act of 2019, a secretary was just like a paper pusher, the person that will have to go and arrange the chairs, come and sit down when we talk, just write, keep quiet, don't say anything. No. Now, the role of the secretary has changed. The law says that the secretary is the custodian of corporate governance. The secretary is supposed to guide the board in how they conduct their affairs. Okay? So people set up business, they make their wife secretary, they make their sister secretary, will do nothing. In fact, that person that is serving as a secretary, if anything goes wrong in the business, guess what? The shareholders can bring an action against the secretary. So your shareholders can sue the secretary. The directors can bring an action. Okay? The taxman as well. The registrar of companies, being the regulator of all companies, and also sanction the secretary, corporate governance, principles. So I'm saying that yes, sometimes all these things come at a cost. All I'm saying is that be intentional in who you choose as a secretary. Don't just get anybody who does nothing. Talk to somebody who knows what they are doing. You can even go and get one of my companies that, is a startup that I help and all that. I say, look, go and get somebody who is a graduate. Now, today, there are plenty who don't have jobs. Get them and give them, it's a part-time job and all that. Bring them. Give them a 2-hour training on how to be a secretary. That's all. They are there. They are doing the work. So you can do the same. You can get somebody can give them a crash course on how to be a board secretary, and they'll play that role nicely without even charging you any money. But then you are adhering to the law, and you are also keeping proper records, and making sure that corporate governance is top-notch for your business.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
There are other questions in the chat.
Can you hear me? I think your line is, I don't know whether it's my line or it's your line.
I believe it would be Nanis. But
Okay, good.
lawyer, there is another question in the chat box.
Can you speak up,
Adeline
please?
Adeline is asking in the chat
Okay.
box if she can make her competitor a member of the board of directors. I mean, she means someone who is ahead of her in business, but a competitor.
Okay, good. So, Adeline, let me say it's a yes and no. And I'll explain to you why. First and foremost, basic. A director has access to all your financial information. Your audited accounts have to be submitted to your board, that director. The director can have access to bank accounts, you name it, all the business security, the director have access to that. Okay. So ordinarily, a competitor that is likely to use, that information to your detriment, you don't make that person, a board member. You can set up an advisory board, in which case that one is not sanctioned by law. You have created it to be giving you advice. Then you can make that person an advisory board member. That one, there's nothing wrong. But I will not advise you to make a competitor a member of your board of directors. No. Sooner or later, the information that they acquire, they use it against you. As for advisory board, you give them what you want. You go to them when you need the advice. And I'll give you an example. In fact, in my practice as a lawyer, a couple of years ago, I just told myself that, look, it appears to me that I'm plateauing. I'm not growing the way I ought to be growing. So there was somebody in the market that I admired a lot. So I gave him a call. In fact, I sent him an email. And then he agreed to a call. And I said, look, I admire your practice and I admire how you're doing your business. And I think that I'm kind of plateauing and all that. So will you be interested if we met for lunch? And then we discussed. He said, oh, yeah, why not? So I took him to a Class City hotel. Then it used to be Novotel. I went there with my notebook. Everything he said, I wrote it down. Okay. So at the end of the day, I'll consider him as an advisor, but not a member of my board. So, Adeline, don't put a competitor on your board of directors. If you do have an advisory council or an advisory board, somebody that will serve only in an advisory capacity, but not as a member of your board. Thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. Emmanuel, you raise your hand
Yes.
sometime. Yes. Can you speak now?
Oh, okay.
And that would be maybe we'll take one more question after this. So if you have your questions, kindly put it in the chat or raise your hand. All right, Emmanuel, kindly go ahead.
Okay, thank you, sir, for the opportunity and Dr. Kweku for the insights you shared with us. In fact, it's been quite insightful. I personally work with the registrar of companies to assist people register their businesses. And in fact, what he shared with us has really given me a lot of knowledge and understanding to certain things that certain terminologies we use in the business. Now, I wanted to know, when you were talking about professional bodies, registration of professional bodies, you made mention that they can also, they normally register as partners, that they go for the option of partnership. But there are others that I think they also you go for the option of unlimited liability companies, that's private unlimited liability companies. So I wanted to know the difference between the two, private partnership and the private unlimited liability companies.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel. Emmanuel, as a matter of fact, my firm is registered as an unlimited liability company. Okay. Yes, first and foremost, there are a number of differences, but just for our purposes here, let me say that when it comes to partnerships and the issue of liability, we say that the liability of the partners are not different from the partnership as an entity. So if the partnership today, KPMG deals with you, and then KPMG, is indebted to you, and KPMG as an entity is unable to pay you, guess what? You can actually levy execution on the partners personally. You understand? So the partners will be, we say in law, they are jointly and severally liable with the partnership as an entity.
Okay, sir.
Okay, good. Now, a lot of us, we were fighting for professionals to have their, company, their business is registered as limited liability. But the regulator said, no way. Because the professional services are provided by professionals. And somebody is trusting you to provide them with a certain service. So we are not allowing professionals to hide under the corporate veil
to
limit their liability. So even when you want to set up as a company, we say you set up as an unlimited liability company. So that when it comes to the issue of liability, is not different from the partnership. So in a partnership, the partners are jointly and severally liable partnership. In an unlimited liability company, in effect, it operates the same way. If the company is unable to pay, what it means is that we can come after the shareholders. Whereas in a limited liability company, if the company is unable to pay, too bad for the third party. The shareholders don't have any responsibility whatsoever. Okay? Unless we say in law that the veil is lifted, but that's not the focus of this, so I'll not go into that.
Okay, sir.
Yes. Okay. Right. I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, sir. You've answered it clearly.
Okay. Good. I see here, can you give a reference place or source I can get the process and protocols to pass through to get an agribusiness started and running? Registration, legalities, permit structures to pass through and set up. Potential contact, if possible, for such direction. So, right. Unfortunately, we don't have any book that will tell you how to do something like this. But I'm assuming that you are a promoter, you are somebody thinking about setting up an agribusiness. Maybe your first point of call is that find out somebody who has already set up an agribusiness. Contact that person and say, look, I want to set up an agribusiness. Can you help? And you see, there's one notion that I need to dispel. You see, oftentimes we are all very, we hesitate to ask for help. But look, back in the day, when you are going somewhere and then you are lost and you stop and ask for direction, more than likely that person that asks for direction, they will stop everything they are doing and they will help you. Oh, pass here. Oh, are you going there? I can even sit in your car and go and show you the place. They'll do everything possible. You know why? Once again, it's part of our humanity. everybody wants to feel that they know something that they want to share. So it's because we are not asking. If you go and ask, they will share with you. And when you go and ask, don't let the person be thinking that you are just coming to ask for asking sake. I told you that when I needed, somebody's advice to take my business to the next level, I went with a notebook. Even though I bought the food, I didn't eat. I was writing notes. So the person also will be pouring. You are writing. When you go, just go and sit down. And when I went and I took all my notes and all that, and I came back and I sat down in my office, I looked at it and I started looking at, okay, which ones can I implement? After 1 month, I sent my email and gave an update as to what I had done and the impact on my business. So that accountability right there. You understand? So the next time, so once I reported once, twice, and all that, after that, the end of the year, he himself sent me an email. How is it going, Charlie? Everything okay? Can we meet? He wanted to know so that he too can go and brag somewhere that, this guy, I'll help him on. So it is. And there's nothing wrong. I mean, all of us, everybody will be helped by somebody. You understand? So that's what it is. So the journey to the top is not crowded at all. There's a place for all of us, but you have to pass through somebody. So there's nothing wrong. So my brother, you just have to look for somebody who has already set up one, and you start, putting in place the plans to do that. You may, at that point in time, go and talk to, go and find somebody, some lawyer somewhere to say, oh, this is what I want to do. Me, I don't have any money. Can you point me in the right direction? As a matter of fact, you can even go to the Registrar General's department. There are some of them that have been working there for many years that can, at the very least, give you the rudiment of how to set it up. And you set up going. I actually see, Nana, I actually see some picture here. Some guy called Francis Kofi Pagli. He looks like one of my former students. So I want him to identify himself if he indeed is the one. Do you see Francis Kofi Pagli here? You're on mute. You're on mute.
Yes,
You have to
yes.
unmute yourself, Nana.
Yeah, Doc.
Okay.
Yes.
Doc,
He's
good
talking.
evening.
Yes.
Yeah.
Are you the one that I know? Are you the Francis that I know?
Exactly so. This is
I
the
see.
Francis, you know.
I see. And
Happy to
Francis,
hear
go ahead.
happy to hear you speak this evening. I think all the listeners are blessed. You are an instrumental lecturer. And I think this
Francis.
workshop is giving Doc.
Yes. Where are you? Where are you now? Are you at Makwala or you have exited?
Yes, Doc. I'm in the part 1 now.
Good. So I'll give you work. Look, guys, Francis has an LLB. He's now at the law school. So sometimes when it comes to some of the basics and all that, he will know. He knows. And when you go to Francis and go and ask him for help, he can't charge you anymore. He doesn't have a license, so he won't charge you. Francis, am I lying?
Exactly so. For now,
So as for the help, is there?
Yes,
So
I'm
Francis,
available.
you can leave your contact in the chat so that whoever wants to contact you would be able to connect with you.
Radley, so thank you. I'll do
Yes.
that.
And Francis, that is how you develop your network even before you finish school. And you see, the people that you help, you just give them basic information here and there. Know that by the time that you get your license, you start practicing as a lawyer, these guys, their businesses would have grown. Now you start charging them money. You see that thing? That's how it works.
Yes.
Thank you, Doc. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Doc. Yeah, I can see the same thing with Winifred. He asked, my name is Winifred and I run a software development agency, and initially I registered it as a sole proprietorship. Please, is it possible to change it to limited liability now that the company is in full operations? I believe
yes, Winifred, you can do that. And I actually advise you to go ahead and do that. That's the only way you can grow your software agency. So you can change into a limited liability company.
Yeah.
Not a problem at all. Yes.
So Winifred, you can contact Emmanuel. He is already doing that. He is your guy, so you can connect with him. I think he can message you directly with his contacts and assist you with that. As Doc said, you always have to ask somebody for help. I've asked him for help several times. He's a helper, I'm telling you. And if you, maybe you may not be able to afford his legal service, but platforms like this, you can get free things, pro bono. So, Doc, we are very grateful. And once again, if you are watching my screen, that is Doc. As I mentioned, he's a board chairman for Creditmore, and as he said by himself, he served on many boards that I can't mention all of them here. He's a senior lecturer. You met one of his students who by name Francis, and that is his firm, AB Lexmore and Associates, and he's an amazing man, I can tell you that. And I'm sure everybody has experienced him, very humble and always available to show you the way and bless you with what he has also been blessed with. So, Doc, we are very grateful, very grateful.
Thank you very much once again for having me. And as I said, always ready to share. And for those of you that will end up signing up for Christopreneurship, I think I will make myself available, and assist in any way that I can. Thank you very much.